Hi, Ryan. I'm so
Oh,
excited to have you here.
yeah, thank you so much, Melanie.
Absolutely. It's such a pleasure, and I'm so grateful for you to be part of Mastering the Unknown as author of Successful Mindset and all the research you have done around mindset. I feel it is one of those components right now with uncertainty all around us. Um, so tell me a little, how did you get to researching and diving so deep into the topic of mindset?
Yeah, and thanks for having me on, and thanks for asking, and thanks for trusting me to put me in front of your audience here. So it's been an interesting journey for me. I when I did my dissertation at Indiana University, I
Mm.
studied leadership, and so that allowed me the opportunity to review the last 70 years of leadership research, which is fantastic, and I learned a lot from that. But one of the things that I learned that didn't sit very well with me was that approximately 70% of all of leadership research is focused on leadership behaviors. In other words, what do leaders need to do to be effective? And I think leaders in general want the answers to that question. But the reason why it didn't sit very well with me is because I think of leadership as being something more than just doing the right things. I think of leadership about being somebody that other people want to follow. And so since my dissertation, I've been focused on how do we capture this being element of leadership, and everything's led me to mindsets. And what I've learned is that our mindsets are the mental lenses that we wear that shape how we view the world around us. And how we see the world around us shapes how we think, learn, and behave. And so if we can improve our mindsets, I believe that we can improve our being. And to your point, we can improve our ability to navigate the situation that we're in more effectively.
Oh, absolutely. I love that piece around the being and doing piece. How do you feel that that being and having that mindset informs the doing part?
Well, our being definitely informs the doing part. And in particular, when we look at our mindsets have three jobs. And I think it's important that we understand these jobs because then we'll understand how foundational our mindsets are. So when we encounter a new situation, and this could be a crisis, when we are in that situation, our senses are sending all sorts of information to our brain, way more than we could process. And so our brain has some mechanisms within it that is designed to first filter in select information that our brain deems most important. Second, it interprets that information in unique ways. And then third, it activates different elements about ourselves to best navigate that situation. And what this mechanism in our brain is our mindsets. So these are the three jobs of mindsets, is they filter in specific information, they interpret that information in unique ways, and that activates different elements of who we are so that we could best navigate that situation dependent upon how we interpreted it. So to make that come alive a little bit, when we are hit with COVID-19 and all sorts of things that are going on, our senses are sending all sorts of information to our brain, and we're having to process this. And certain information, our mindsets are filtering in certain information and interpreting that in unique ways. So one of the ways that I see this is some people see our current situation as though the sky is falling. Other people see this situation as though, wow, there are some really unique opportunities that have now presented themselves. So there's two different people seeing the same exact thing, but interpreting it so differently. And depending upon how we interpret it, depends upon who we bring of ourselves to that situation and how we navigate that situation. So if somebody is saying the sky is falling, they might be inclined to be like a turtle that puts their head in the shell. Somebody who sees the situation as new opportunities, they're going to stick their neck out and explore the world. And that's going to be a completely different experience. And it's all based on their mindsets.
How about those people that are turtles with their heads sticking out and then pulling them back in and sticking them out and pulling them back in?
Well, I think it's better than just having them in, because what happens is when we have our head in our shells, we are in self-protection mode, And when we are in self-protection mode, where is our focus? It's on ourselves. But if we want to live up to our ideal selves and have the influence that I believe we all want to have, then we need to focus less on ourselves and focus more on the contribution that we're having in the lives of others. And the only way that we could do that is if we have our heads out of those shells.
Oh, absolutely. How does something like fear inform you? I mean, taking that metaphor of the turtle. So the turtle senses fear and its natural impulses to draw back and become secure. What makes the turtle come back out of its shell?
Well, one of the things that, and I'm glad you brought this up, because fear has a tendency to pull us into these negative mindsets.
Mm-hmm.
And this fear is often very justified. So to give you an example of this, I was working with a client the other day, and he was saying that he wanted to do he was a sales rep, and he wanted to do a better job of bringing in higher profit sales. So he's bringing in a lot of sales, but the estimates that he's providing are quite conservative. So while he's booking the jobs, they're not making a whole lot of money from those jobs. So he wants to be more exploratory. So I asked him, why aren't you being more exploratory? And why aren't you being a little bit more aggressive? And he said, well, I'm afraid that if I do that, then I won't have the same sales conversion rate. And so what's going on here is he wants higher profit sales. He's got one foot on the gas, but he's also saying, I'm afraid of missing out on sales. And that's also putting one foot on the brake. And so in a way, what's going on as we just explore this, these fears are self-sabotaging the success that he's seeking. Mm-hmm. And so in order for him to get over these fears, actually what we've got to do is we've got to identify what mindsets are driving those fears. In this case, it was a fixed mindset because he's afraid of failure. And to somebody with a fixed mindset, failure means that they're a failure. But if we could shift more to a growth mindset, then somebody with a growth mindset doesn't see failure as a bad thing. They see it as an opportunity to learn and grow. And they're much more willing to advance towards that failure, or at least the challenge. So if we could help this person shift from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset, hopefully you could see that we would be lifting the foot off of the brake, and he would be able to go more quickly towards the goal that he's seeking.
Oh, that's so true. And if you kind of see around innovation work and opportunities, it is really opening that space, and innovation invites failure, or a different word for it, experimentation, right? You experiment. And so shifting to experimentation and seeing and trial and error is kind of that environment. You have
There's a book.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me just mention a book that I love. I think it's my most favorite business book of all time. And I mentioned part of it in my own book, but the book is Creativity, Inc. And it's written by Ed Catmull, who's the founder of Pixar Animation and then took over Walt Disney Animation when Walt Disney bought out Pixar. And the whole book is how do you create an environment of innovation and creativity? And one of the main points in his book, which I think is so true, which is to your point, you've got to create a sense of safety. If people have problems, or if they feel like they have problems that they'll get reprimanded for those, then their focus will become on avoiding problems. But you cannot simultaneously be focused on avoiding problems and also be creative and innovative, because creation and innovation require wading through problems. And so it seems that we could justify avoiding problems, but at that same time, it's wreaking havoc on our ability to be creative and innovative. And there's probably no time in my history that has required us to be more creative and more innovative, or in other words, agile, to meet the demands that we're currently facing.
How do you get into that agile kind of mind space? You know, what is it that you've done for corporation or individuals to help them transition with themselves and their teams?
Yeah, great question. And we chatted about this a little bit before the call, and I was saying how I love the title for the summit, Mastering the Unknown. And I think in order for us to become more agile, we need to master our unknown. And for most of us, our mindsets, even though they're playing a foundational role in our lives, most of us are not conscious of our mindsets. In fact, research has found that 90% of our thinking, feeling, judging, and acting is driven by our non-conscious automatic processing. But it's our mindsets that guide this non-conscious automatic processing. And the cool thing is, and this is why I love focusing on mindsets, is that if we can awaken to our mindsets and become conscious of those, then we're empowered to operate more effectively. So in my own, I think I focus on mindsets because I probably need as much help with my mindsets as anybody else. And what I've learned is that when I wasn't conscious of my mindsets, how I would operate in the situations that I encountered would be a reaction. I would non-consciously react to the situation. But now that I have a better understanding of mindsets and different mindsets to have, now I feel I'm more empowered not to react, but to intentionally respond. And that's a huge difference. And so if we can come alive to some of the elements that drive what we do, these foundational mindsets that we normally aren't conscious of, then we can, if we effectively put ourselves in a position to be more of the driver of our lives and less of the passenger.
I love the language you use, the awaken to it. Are there practices? Are there tools? How do you awaken that part?
Well, it's tricky. And that's one of the reasons why I wrote the book that I did. But then also along with the book comes a personal mindset assessment. And in fact, you can take the assessment without the book. It's free on my website at ryangottfredson.com. And what I found in my research of mindsets is that mindsets have been studied for 30 plus years across management, psychology, education, and marketing. But in each of these disciplines, the mindsets that are studied are different from each other, and they largely don't talk to each other. And so what I've done is I've just brought these mindsets together into one framework, and I focus on 4 different sets of mindsets. And when somebody takes this assessment, they'll be able to find where they stand with regards to these mindsets compared to 10,000 other people. So each of these sets represent a continuum from negative to positive, and they'll know exactly where they stand along that continuum, and they'll know where they are and where they need to go if they want to kind of operate more effectively. And the assessment results presents some guidance in terms of how they improve our mindsets. But that's the first step, is kind of just using an assessment like that to awaken to our current mindsets.
So it's kind of a snapshot giving us an insight on where we're at right now. Have you taken the assessment lately?
I haven't. It's tricky because once you know about these mindsets, you kind of know how to answer it. And so for me, I haven't taken the mindset, but what I do feel like now that I know these different mindsets, I'm much more conscious of where I'm at. And what I try to do is just periodically step back and try to remove myself from the situation and evaluate where my mindsets are. So let me give you an example of something that I would say commonly occurs to me. So I've got an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old.
Ooh, yeah.
Which are, I try to see every age as having its own pros and cons, and I try to focus on the pros. But one of the things that we're finding now that our kids are being homeschooled, and in fact earlier today, is that my daughter, for example, today, she's really dragging her feet on getting her schoolwork done. And there's only so many times that you could say, hey, can you go work on your schoolwork, before you just kind of, your patience starts wearing thin. And when I feel my patience start wearing thin, I try to step back from that moment and say, am I having an inward mindset or an outward mindset? And the difference between these two are, when I have an inward mindset, I'm seeing myself as more important than others. Therefore, I have a tendency to see others as an object. When I have an outward mindset and see others as being just as important as myself, I'm more inclined to see them as people. So when my patience runs thin, I've learned that I have a tendency to be more inclined to see other people like objects. So when my daughter is not doing her homework, I'm now starting to say, for me, shift towards the inward mindset. And I'm thinking, you are now disrupting my life, right? Because you are not doing your homework. We are now limiting our freedom of what we can do later in the day. And so now I'm personalizing it. But when I step back and I evaluate this, and I think this probably happens to everybody, then what it now empowers me to do is ask, what is she going through? What is going on in her life that is causing her to not to want to do her homework? Now I'm much more inclined to explore this. Like, if she's reluctant to do her homework, is it because she doesn't understand it and she doesn't know how to express that? Is it because she feels burned out herself and she just needs a break? Right? So when I have the inward mindset, I'm much more inclined to snap and just kind of be rigid. When I have the outward mindset, I'm much more exploratory, and I'm much more likely to navigate in the situation in a way that is more healthy for both of us. So hopefully that makes sense.
Oh, very much so. Very much so. I'm curious, for people that have more of an outward mindset, is there something that needs to regulate, or how does that work in your assessment?
Well, all of these mindsets are things that we can change. I think out of the 4 sets of mindsets that I focus on, the inward and outward is the one that we change most readily. And it's maybe the easiest to change on a moment by moment basis. Although I do think we carry around a dominant mindset out of inward versus outward. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I try to ask introspective questions to help me regulate my mindset. So in the case of inward and outward mindsets, I ask myself, do I have an inward mindset or an outward mindset? Or I could ask, am I seeing them as a person or as an object? Or another question that's very powerful that I have stolen from a guy named Benjamin Zander. He's the founder and conductor of the Boston Philharmonic Orchestra. Uh-huh. And he says that when things aren't going right, we should ask the question, who am I being that their eyes are not shining? So when my daughter's eyes are not shining, rather than point the finger at her and say, what's wrong with you? Go do your homework. Instead, I should maybe ask, who am I being that her eyes are not shining? And that, upon asking that question, that immediately shifts me more into this outward mindset mode.
Oh, absolutely. What about some of the other dimensions that you have?
Yeah, so we've talked a little bit about fixed and growth mindsets. Mm-hmm. So when we have a fixed mindset, we don't believe that we could change our talents, abilities, and intelligence. Somebody with a growth mindset does believe that they could change their talents, abilities, and intelligence. And who's more inclined to be able to navigate a chaotic environment or a crisis? Those that don't believe that they can change, or those that do? And that seems pretty clear. So it's better for us to have a growth mindset. Another set that I focus on is the difference between a, oh yeah, go ahead.
I just have a question around that, yeah. Especially in corporations. You know, corporations have large responsibility, a lot of people, and how do you foster more of a growth mindset where you have certain cultures, and the larger the organization, the more there is more structure and less agility. So how can you support larger organizations?
It's definitely not easy. Let me give you a fantastic case study, and that is Microsoft. So Microsoft from 2001 to 2014 stayed stagnant. Their market cap and their stock price stayed the same. They're still a really large company, but what that meant is during those 13, 14 years is all of their competitors were flying past them. So Apple's, Google, Amazon, Facebook are all blowing past Microsoft. And in fact, in 2014, there were experts that were asking the question, is Microsoft dead in the water? Well, since 2014, Microsoft has been blowing through the roof. So their market cap has quadrupled since 2014. Their stock price has quadrupled, And they're now among one of the 4 most valuable companies in the world. And so it leads us to ask the question, what in the world happened in 2014 in order for this to occur? Well, the main thing that happened is they got a new CEO. So Satya Nadella took over as CEO. And if you've read his book, Hit Refresh, which is a fantastic book, you'll know that he says that the C in CEO stands for curator of culture. Mm-hmm. So he knew right away that he needed to focus on fixing the culture. And to do that, he focused on a growth mindset and improving the growth mindsets of their employees. Because what he had learned is that there was pressure within this large hierarchical organization. There's pressure to be right and to know it all. But when you feel like you need to know it all, you're no longer in learning mode. You're protecting your knowledge and you're protecting your domain. And so one of the things that he did is he created on all the employee name tags a statement that said, from know it all to learn it all. He also posted the Chinese symbol for learning all over their corporate office space. Like if you were to go into their elevator, you would see the Chinese symbol for learning. So on a big picture, he focused on the culture, but how he shifted the culture was through these little things that helped create a safer environment for the idea that it's okay to be wrong in the focus of learning and growing. And as they've done that and as they've shifted to more of a growth mindset, we've seen the literal growth of the organization in terms of their market cap and stock price. So hopefully that makes sense, and that's a pretty good
amazing
example.
Absolutely. One piece, because curiosity is so deeply rooted. How come it was a Chinese symbol that he used? Do you have any idea?
I don't have any idea. I just know, and he doesn't go into a huge amount of depth of what they did. But reading articles and things like that about it this was a very orchestrated move across the organization, that they were doing a lot of little things like this. And another little thing that they did was Satya Nadella on a monthly basis was holding his own webinar for employees about what he had learned in the prior month. Because what he was trying to demonstrate in an authentic way is, I don't need to know everything, and it's okay that you don't either. But what is important is that we're learning. And so I imagine, and I could be wrong, but this is just my imagining, is that during these webinars, he talked about the Chinese symbol of learning so that everybody knows what it is and what it means when they see it around the office space.
I love that. Is that one of the reasons that you got into research, your desire for learning?
Yeah, I think for me, definitely learning. While I say that, I also know that I've historically had a fixed mindset. And I think that there's certain areas where I've had a growth mindset and other areas where I've had a fixed mindset. So for example, my freshman year of college, I took the Weeder chemistry class as a pre-med major. So I was wanting to become a doctor. And that first semester, I got a C. And for me, I had passed the class, but for me, that was a failing grade. I had never gotten a C before. Mm-hmm. And so what my fixed mindset told me is, hey, this didn't come naturally to you, so you better change your major, right? So that's what I did, is I changed my major. Where if I had a growth mindset, now knowing, a better option would have been for me to say, hey, becoming a doctor is going to be difficult. You may want to reevaluate your study habits. But that didn't even occur to me. So for me, one of the ways that I've seen my fixed mindset manifest is when it's something that doesn't come naturally to me, it's been difficult for me to persevere. When it's something that does come naturally to me, I'm willing to dive in. And the ideas around leadership are something that has just come naturally to me. So I've been more willing to learn in that domain than I have in chemistry. But now that I think I've shifted more from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset, that I'm more willing to explore things that don't come as easy to me.
So I have a bit of a provocative question around that. Okay. And it has to do with leadership and comfort zone. comfort zone is the things that come easy to us, right?
Yep.
And stepping out of that is really uncomfortable, right? And so it doesn't come at ease, and things that aren't the way that we used to do it, or managers who are excellent at what they've done so far, and all of a sudden it's not the task and the function, it is managing people, or it is on a larger scale becoming an entrepreneur and venturing out into the unknown of not knowing what markets will be like. In all of this, how does staying in the comfort zone, expanding, and that growth mindset, or one of the other sets, come into play?
Yeah, what you're saying reminds me, are you a fan of Brene Brown?
Oh, so very much.
Your language, right? So I love Brene Brown. And one of the things that I've heard her say, and she used a little bit more worse language. I'm going to try to paraphrase it, but she says, it's your effing first time, right? So it's your FFT is what she calls it. So what I love the way she talks about it is because this FFT is a muscle that we have, that when we don't use our FFT in a while, it becomes very difficult for us to get out of our comfort zone and try something new. But the more we engage in trying something new, the easier it is to try new things. And so I think as we go through life, I mean, you look at children, I look at my kids, every day they're going through multiple FFTs, and it's uncomfortable. And as we get older and older, because of some of that discomfort, we want to create comfort and stability in our lives. But what we're doing is we're kind of losing the strength of our FFT muscle.
Yeah.
And so I think we've got to consciously work out that muscle. And if we don't, we run the risk of being rigid. But when we've worked it out and we become willing to, I've heard it called jump onto new learning curves or new S curves. When we increase our ability to do that, then our ability to be agile is so much greater. So hopefully that makes sense.
It does, and it sparks a couple of questions, with putting it in this current moment that we're in, with so many things that are uncertain. Uncertainty of job security, uncertainty of the markets, uncertainty in so many ways. How do you still embark on the agility? How do you connect to that when your entire world is turned upside down and you don't even know? People are talking about, when do we get back to the new normal? But no one has a clue what the new normal is.
Yeah, and I don't think there will be a new normal, at least for a while. I've tried my best to try to look at the situation as, what opportunities is this giving me? And this played out in multiple areas, both personally and professional. So personally, one of the things that my wife and I love to do with our kids is to travel or to go to the beach. And during the time, at least up until recently, we haven't been able to go to the beach. So we could be focused on, oh man, we can't go to the beach. But what we've done instead is we say, what opportunity does this now provide for us? So rather than spend our Saturday at the beach or a Sunday at the beach, where else can we spend our time? And where we've actually gone is we've gone to the mountains. So we've just gone the other direction to the mountains, and we've been hiking as a family. So these are things that we never would have done before, but now we have the opportunity to do so. And it's been a really fun experience for our whole family. My children they're like, we need hiking boots. So we got them hiking boots, and they're totally into hiking now. So that's been helpful on a professional level. Much of my revenue comes from public speaking. Well, can't do a whole lot of public speaking right now. But as a professor at Cal State Fullerton, we moved everything online, and all of my speaking engagements went away. And now I had an incredible amount of unscheduled time to put towards something else. And so this allowed me the opportunity to do what I'm now putting the final touches on of an online course. So because I won't be able to do some public speaking for who knows how long, well, now I'm creating an online course. And this is really scary. I've never created a big online course before, but I'm trying, this is my FFT in a way, of trying something new, and we'll see where it goes. But I do recognize that even if this course isn't successful, which hopefully it will, and I think it will be, but even if it wasn't successful, the things that I'm going to learn as a process of creating an online course, I think will be invaluable for the future as we're going to continue to move online with regards to, I think, training and consulting as a whole.
And there's so many skills that you learn around that. What it reminded me a lot of is innovation workshops I used to do back in Europe. And one of the things are provocative situations where people get to explore first, what is the benefit? Not shooting down, but finding to explore the benefit. And I'm hearing this, and I love getting examples how leaders step up, how you're doing this online course and going the steps and going deeper and learning along the way and going for the FTT.
Yep.
FFT, sorry.
FFT. No, you're good.
There you go. What is it that you would like people to take away that is something practical for them to incorporate sort of into their everyday, like a little habit, a tool to apply to take them stepwise into more of a known territory?
Yeah, in fact, I was talking to a client the other day, and the light bulb went off for me, and he helped the light bulb come off for me. So I want you to think about how much time do you spend taking care of your teeth on a daily basis, right? We probably should spend about 2 minutes, at least 5 minutes, 2 minutes brushing at least morning and night. I would like to think. And then flossing on top of that. And then on a regular basis, every 6 months or so, we go in for a checkup with our dentist and a deeper clean. And I think it led me to pose the question, what is more important, our teeth or our mindsets? And I think both are really important. I think I can make the case that mindsets are more important, but I'm not saying that they're not both important. But then the question becomes, how much time do we spend on our mindsets? Are we, and I think that what we need to the time and the effort that we need to spend on our mindsets is very similar to the time and the effort that we spend taking care of our teeth. So we need to go, I think it would be well for us to go in for a regular deep clean every 6 months or so. But then on a daily basis, spend some time focusing on our mindsets. And let me share with you something that's been life-changing for me. It's a book called The 5-Minute Journal. Mm-hmm. And this was handed to me by a business owner, and we're both in Orange County, California. And his name is Charles Antis, and he's with Antis Roofing and Waterproofing, and really charismatic leader. And he, one day, a few years ago, he hands me this book and he says, this book's going to change your life. And outwardly, I'm very gracious. Yeah, thanks, Charles. This is great. But in my own mind, I'm thinking, there's no way in hell I'm journaling. Like, it's not going to happen. Like, I'm not a journaler. But I bring it home, and it invites you to just spend 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes at night, answering a few questions. So the 3 questions in the morning are, what are 3 things you're grateful for? What are 3 things that would make today great? And then fill in some self-affirmations. And when he handed me this book, I had a prevention mindset, which means I was more focused on avoiding problems than I was reaching goals. As I started to do this on a daily basis, it shifted my mindset more to the promotion mindset. Because when I would answer that question, how do I make today amazing? Mm-hmm. Then I was left thinking, how do I make today better than yesterday? How do I make this week better than last week? How do I make this month better than last month? And it helped me to become much more purposeful And in all honesty, I credit this book and Charles giving it to me that led me to start up my own consulting business. Otherwise, without a promotion mindset, I would have never been an entrepreneur. I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. I never would have written my book, and we probably never would have had this conversation. And so what I've learned through mindset research is we shift mindsets through small little daily interventions like this. And that if we want to shift and maintain and have those positive mindsets, we've got to develop small little tools just like this, which I've recommended, that isn't too different than just caring for our teeth. And so hopefully that's some guidance or a tool that people can use.
Oh, Ryan, I'm having goosebumps. I had the opportunity to talk to Charles, and I just find it so magical when there are ripple effects of, one person sharing an idea with another or with a bigger group. And we don't necessarily know how that's going to change the trajectory of someone's lives. And this is really what, the intention behind Mastering the Unknown. It is not about the knowing, but by going on this journey together, connecting together, and your work around mindset and your assessment and all of that, making an impact on someone out there that is just going to change and really bring about, thriving and a sustainable future. So this feels like we're almost coming full circle here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to your point, it's, I'm just looking for my book that's right here. But I mean, to your point, like, as you say, that ripple effect, and I don't necessarily say this to boast by any means, but to demonstrate that ripple effect, that in reality, if Charles hadn't given that to me, who knows what would happen. But my book just came out, and then it recently hit the Wall Street Journal and USA Today bestseller list. Like, so for me, like, the ripple effect has been huge, but then how that's going out, and now some of the emails that I'm getting from people who are now reading the book about the effect that the book is having on their lives, is, as you're saying, this ripple effect. I'm now connecting the dots in the moment, thinking, oh my goodness, that's pretty cool.
Absolutely. And coming back to wholeness and unity rather than dividing us. So thank you so much. Around the free gift for, listeners, do you want to share a little bit about that?
For sure. So one of the free gifts is my personal mindset assessment. That's free on my website at ryangottfredson.com. Also, I'm willing to give away 25 copies of my audiobook. And so people can get the first 25 people can get copies of that and download it right into their podcast player. And so I believe I sent over the directions on how they can do that. And so hopefully people will jump on that.
Thank you so much, Ryan. That is really amazing. And everyone who's listening, those are great opportunities. His assessment is really eye-opening. You get a take of what your growth mindset is, what inward, outward look, and the other sets in that. Thank you so much. I'm really appreciative of you taking time, sharing your book, your insights, your research, great stories.
No, thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me on. And hopefully this and your summit as a whole will cause its own ripple effects.
Absolutely. We're causing waves all together. That's the aim. Okay.
I love it.
So thank you so much.